In this interview, you will hear one of the most incredible stories that I've had the privilege to record on this channel. It's a real story of resilience, resistance, and determination and mindset. I hope you enjoy the story, and if you enjoyed it as much as I do, he does have a GoFundMe page which I'll put in the link below. Please support this guy. Hi, welcome back to the Primal Lifestyle, and I have got a fantastic guest today, and his story. One of my fellow UK carnivores, Donna, contacted me and said, "You need to see this guy's story." So I went to his YouTube channel, and I was blown away by the content. So rather than waste any more time, let's get him on board. So I'd just like to welcome Anthony. Welcome to the Primal Lifestyle, Anthony. Please just kick off. Just tell us your story, because I think it's an amazing story.
Well, first of all, thanks for the invite, Carl. As you guys can see on screen, my name is Anthony Hayduck, and I am now a 33-year-old stage 4 GIST cancer warrior. GIST stands for gastrointestinal stromal tumor. And in today's podcast, you're going to learn about how and why I went from chemo to carnivore. And I will also be talking about life prior to the diagnosis. So to start off, we'll talk about life prior to the diagnosis so we could get an intro on diagnosis till now and the whole circle of the picture on how I feel and have felt. As a child growing up, I definitely had bowel movement issues. I was on medications at a young age for going number 2. I think that started around 5 or 6 years old and probably happened up until my teen years. I was on medications. And of course, in our teen years, bad acne as well. My sister had acne. We thought that was just normal hormones. My parents, or our parents, spent a lot of money on different face creams for acne, the whole 9 yards. And in my case, it didn't help too much. In my sister's case, it helped a little bit. So flash forward from childhood with the bathroom problems into my teen years with the acne, still having bathroom problems, stomach pains. At that time, it was just eating whatever I could eat. You know, my parents didn't know any better. It was a standard American diet. Food was food. What fits in the mouth, we eat it. And no leftovers, you know, you eat what's on your plate. And in my early to mid 20s, I ended up getting gallstones, and I was told, Mr. Hayduck, you got gallstones once, you're going to get them again. Once you get them once, you're more susceptible to get them a second time or a third time. So I was young, dumb, and vulnerable, and I allowed the surgeon to then remove my gallbladder. What I found out many years later is all I had to do was keep more healthier fats in my diet, and the gallbladder were to produce more bile, or vial, how do we pronounce it, and I would have never got gallstones. So remember the fact I don't have a gallbladder, because now I'm now carnivore for 22 months, and it's a high-fat, medium protein diet, and without a gallbladder, I can still do it. So if I could do it, you guys could do it. So flashback, I had the gallbladder removed. They told me, Mr. Hayduck, after a couple of months of learning a new diet and lifestyle, keeping fat out of your system, you'll start feeling better. Months go by, and I was still getting sick, getting diarrhea, feeling like trash when I ate, lethargic, just basically every time I ate, I wanted to take a nap afterwards. And that's been that way most of my life. And a couple of years later, I finally went and seen a naturopathic doctor. I think I was 25 or 26 at the time. And I got tested for a whole bunch of food allergies and found out I'm allergic to, potatoes, xanthan gum, which is an ingredient in a lot of processed foods, oranges, tomatoes, which there goes all the sauces, barbecue sauces, because there's tomato paste. I was allergic to, you know, a dozen different items that I was eating on a regular basis. I cleaned up my diet. The diarrhea got less and less. The stomach pains got less and less, but I still had bowel movement issues, and I still did have, you know, stomach irritability. So we'll say about 28, 29, 30 years old. For those 3 years, I kept complaining to my primary doctors still about stomach pains and irritability, and eventually shortness of breath and, you know, feeling full fast, all these different signs of something being wrong. And my primary doctors just didn't care. They're like, it's your job, because I was a tree climber, hence the suspenders, you know, tree climbing, falling timber, anything to do with trees besides planting them for the most part. I worked in the tree career for 12 years up until surgery day. They kept telling me it was my job, though, that was causing the body pain. You know, you beat yourself up at work. That's what's going on with you. So after a few primary doctors, I kept changing doctors till I could find one that would believe me. And it wasn't until, I don't know the exact dates on the top of my head, but it was sometime in my early 30s or late 29s. My primary doctor that I had, finally, he's like, hey, let's get you a CT scan and we'll see what's going on with you. So flash forward, a few weeks, I got a CT scan and he's like, so you have a softball-sized tumor inside of your intestines and stomach.
So you're talking about something about that size, yeah?
Yeah, a tumor about that size inside of me, and that we found on a CT screen. And we didn't know what it was. It's like, hey, you got a tumor inside of you. Let's go in. Let's schedule endoscopy where they go down your throat and do a biopsy. I scheduled one of those. Scheduled many appointments with different cancer centers, like 2 or 3 different appointments to go over the results of the endoscopy and talk about, different treatment plans if it came back as cancerous. And we scheduled the endoscopy. They went down my throat. They pulled a biopsy and didn't know what it was. Couldn't figure it out. They told me, though, they came back as non-cancerous, so we could proceed forward with surgery if that's what I wanted to do. And with surgery, they would remove the big tumor, which is softball size, and they would also remove one tumor off my liver, because at that point in time, it already had metastasis to my liver from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Pardon the cough. I was outside in the dust all day yesterday, and it just totally wrecked my nasal system.
That's cool.
But what I was getting at saying is I had the softball-sized tumor in my stomach and intestines, and I also had tumors in my liver at that point in time. So flash forward to July 27th, 2022, the day I signed my life away. That was surgery date. I think I sent you a picture. I'll get up on screen real quick, but I have a scar that goes from here.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Yeah. You'll show it up on screen. Yeah, you can see that. And they cut me open from my hip bone to my sternum. It's like a 10-inch or 11-inch scar. And during which they removed a softball-sized tumor. They removed a small section of my liver. And they also removed, I don't have the exact measurements, but about 1/4 to 1/3 of my stomach and intestines. So not only am I missing my gallbladder from years previously, I'm missing, a lot of intestine and also stomach. And that is where I was getting at later on into the story with carnivore. Here I'm missing a bunch of internal pieces, a lot of pieces that help digest foods. And I'm putting down 2-3 pounds of beef a day, and a half a stick of butter a day, and not getting sick at all. So going back to surgery, they removed the tumor out of my stomach. They removed the one off my liver. They did, the resection of everything inside. I spent, I think it was 7 or 9 days in the hospital. It was a couple hours away from home. And I had to relearn how to walk again. I had to learn how to get up and out of the bed during the whole process, because the surgery, I didn't know it. They cut through my nervous system. So every time I moved my left leg, I could feel it through my stomach and inside my guts, the tendons and everything. It was difficult. But by day 4 in the hospital, I was walking down the hallway And I think by day 5, I was already walking a laps across the hallway. I was really determined to get out of there. You know, hospitals to me feel like prison. I've never been to prison, but at least with jail and prison, so I've been told, at least you get to sleep at night. In the hospital, they poke you all the time to keep you awake. But that was not a fun experience. The surgery, the pain levels, and out of the pain I've ever been through, like I've had 24 broken bones throughout my life. I've had 12 different surgeries. The pain level from getting cut open and having to learn how to re-walk and all that was some of the most difficult pain I've ever dealt with.
I bet.
After the 7 to 9 days into the hospital, I still don't know what the tumors were. Somebody had mentioned the word GIST, but at the time when I Googled what is GIST, it came back, gastrointestinal stromal tumor. It could be cancerous or it could not be benign. You don't know till you test it. So I leave the hospital July. Well, it was the first week of August I got released out of the hospital, but in 2022. And still don't know if it's cancerous or benign. The biopsy with the endoscopy, like a month and a half prior, said, benign tumors. That's why we did the surgery. So I leave the hospital. I come back home. I'm home for like 2 weeks. And out of nowhere, I start having seizures and convulsions and like heart problems. I was actually at my niece's birthday party mid-August 2022, just sitting in a chair out of nowhere. And out of nowhere, just head goes back, eyes go back, and I'm doing the floppy chicken in the chair, with no recollection that I'm doing it. And that happened 3 times back to back to back, all in like a 10-minute duration.
Wow.
The second time I was actually standing up in the bathroom mid-piss, and the seizure convulsion happened again, and ended up hitting my head on the clawfoot tub and, knocking myself out. And then, of course, they all found me and heard me fall. And they picked me up, put me in the recliner chair, called 911. And by the time the ambulance got there, a third episode had happened in the chair. So that particular day and the next day, I spent in the ICU with an irregular heartbeat for like 18 hours or 24 hours, something like that. Just they couldn't get it to beat normal. And that's when I realized, that's when we did testing and found out I dealt with afibrillation. And we never did get a real answer on why the seizures was happening and the convulsions happened. Our thought processes, I was just really anemic at the time, going through surgery. My body was just going through a bunch and was shocked. That was the response we came up with, or the answer. The truth, I don't know. But it wasn't any fun. And remembering the seizures and convulsions, those actually intensified and got worse later on into the story once I hopped on chemotherapy treatments, which we'll get to that in a few minutes. So with the seizures that happened mid-August and August, I spent a few days in the hospital. While I was in the hospital, my phone rang. It was the local cancer center saying I needed to make an appointment to go over the biopsies of the tumors. We ended up picking an appointment of my 31st birthday, to be exact. September 9th, 2022, I turned 31. And me and my mom roll up to the local cancer center to, figure out about the biopsies. And I'm not going to mention any of my doctor's names, but
No.
I've been through 11 oncologists since day one till now. All of them are amazing in their own ways, but some of them, we didn't get along with. That's why I've gone through so many, and some just retired or changed. But my first oncologist that I had, lovely lady, I just told her, be blunt with me, be straight. I don't want to be beat around the bush. That's how I am as a person. I don't like to beat around the bush, just be direct. So we walk into the cancer center. I have my appointment, and the oncologist straight up tells me, she's like, the tumors came back as cancerous, and you're classified as stage 4. My first response to her, of course, everything just sunk down in the bottom of my throat. Like, it was hard to swallow. Like, no, stage 4 cancer. Like, I lost my father in 2019 from stage 4 cancer. His was throat cancer, and it transfers to bone, and he made it a few months. And I was like, okay, that's what's going to happen to me. That's my first thought process. And I asked that oncologist straight up, I was like, what's my timeline, do you think? What's your educated guess? And her educated guess, and again, I understand this now, not anybody on earth, doctor, you, me, nobody has the right or the power to give somebody a timeline. It's just an educated guess with the knowledge they had. So the oncologist told me 6 months was her educated guess, being how I was mistreated and misdiagnosed for so long. I needed to hop on treatment or things would progressively get worse, being how I did treatment or being how I did surgery, thinking it was benign tumors. Once you poke the bear, it can make it a lot worse. The tumor cells have a sac around them for a reason. So being how she said 6 months, of course, I had my mom with me at the appointment. We both had our moment of grief. We cried, we were sad, we were angry at the world, the whole 9 yards. But by the time I left that appointment, I'm about to cuss, by the way. By the time I left that appointment, I told my oncologist, I was like, Dr. So-and-so, I appreciate you being honest with me. I appreciate you being straightforward, but I don't give a shit if the cancer stays in my side pocket or it stays in my back pocket, but the cancer is not going to control me. I'm going to make it my bitch. And that's been my attitude every day since then. Is I have been living with I have now found out an incurable diagnosis. There's no Western medicine treatment right now that controls or deals with the mutations that I deal with the cancer that's inside of me. So I told that doctor, like, I'm going to live my life for me. The cancer could be next to me or beside me, but I'm not going to let an illness or a disease define who I am and what I'm capable of. And I really wish that would soak into a lot more people besides myself. It doesn't matter if you're a little bit fat, if you're obese, if you've got Crohn's disease or diabetes. It doesn't matter what the illness is. If you're in a wheelchair, your mindset's everything. And I really want the world to understand that.
100% agree with you on that one. 100%.
There's. I got into the gym after I quit chemo, which we'll get to that. But there's people at the gym that are missing legs, or that are literally wheelchair bound that go every day. I was like, that's an inspiration to me. It's like, I can walk and drive. I can talk. I have all my body parts, at least externally anyway. If they could do it, I could do it. And that's part of the reason why I got my butt into the gym is I was done feeling sorry for myself. And I've realized through the cancer journey is once you do get over that moment of grief, everybody has to grieve. I understand that. We need to, but you have to get over it and move on. If you sit and just dwell on it, you're going to consume yourself with what's going wrong in your life versus trying to better your life. So back to the story at hand is I hopped on treatment right away. She said, you got 6 months without treatment. You need to hop on treatment because you're misdiagnosed. And by the misdiagnosis is multiple things. We found out throughout time that softball-sized tumor that they removed back when they did the gallbladder surgery, which was my mid-20s, that tumor was the size of a pea.
Wow.
So somebody locally knew about the tumor back 6-7 years prior to and never said a word. And at that time it was considered stage 1, because it was in its main location and really small. So if they would have said something a long time ago about it or even operated on it back when they did the gallbladder, I might not have the story anymore. What I mean? So things happen for a reason.
Sliding doors. Yeah.
Yeah. Blessings in disguises. And that's another thing I'll say real quick after I wet my whistle is besides Jeff the Prosperous, which we'll give him a shout out, is I'm the only other person I've ever met besides Jeff the Prosperous that is thankful and grateful to be diagnosed with a type of cancer. It has benefited my life and changed my life and impacted people around me in more ways than I could even imagine. And I'm so grateful for everybody who listens to the story that I can inspire. It makes it a lot easier to put my life on display. You know, it's not easy to make myself vulnerable. So getting back to the story is I hopped on treatment. We already knew that chemotherapy, like in-house radiation, none of that type of stuff works with the type of cancer I deal with or that's inside my body. And again, words are powerful. I say the cancer, not my cancer, you know. I'm not going to claim it. So I hopped on treatment. I think it was October of 2022. It was a TKI therapy. I don't know how to properly pronounce it, but it's like a tyrosine casein inhibitor TKI therapies. Pill form. It's basically a poisonous pill, a chemo pill is what I call it. I hopped on line defense number 2, which was sunitinib malate, 37.5 milligram capsules. I did that pill every day for 130 days straight. And I'm pretty certain I sent you a picture of what I looked like at the worst point of chemo. You know, I looked like Santa Claus. I was like 67.
Yeah, I've got that here. Yeah, no, it's not. Is that the one?
The one on the left with the white hair, yeah, January 31st. So yeah, there we go. That's even better. I'll talk about that real quick. So May 22nd, that was the week of or the month of the endoscopy. That's how I looked prior to surgery, prior to the cancer diagnosis. Not bad, but not great. You know, you can tell my beard's a little bit blotchy.
Yeah.
You know, skin look not the best, but also not the worst. January of 2023, that particular picture was taken the last day I took a chemo pill. And so that's how progressively worse I got in 130 days. I mean, I know May from January is more than 130 days, but that's what it did to me in a short amount of time, just externally. You know, changed my hair color, made my face, you know, inflamed, fat, lost my color, my skin. Like I got Casper white. Like I was able to get sunburnt really easy. Like 10 minutes of sun was too much. You know what I mean? And with the chemo pills that I was on, the targeted therapy is what I call it. The AFib got worse. The seizures got worse. I actually, for the longest time, and I wish I would have had videos of this, and my mom tried to get videos. I apologize, Mom, if you're going to watch this. I wish I would have let you get videos of me having seizures, but at the time, I didn't want people to see me dying on screen. You know what I mean? Like the seizures out of everything were the most scariest I dealt with because I couldn't control them. You know, I didn't know they were coming. It just would happen out of nowhere. I'd get like a 5-second heads up. Hey, something doesn't feel right. And, you know, that's how it would happen. And
wow.
I lost track of 6 or 7 times calling 911 to have the paramedics come to my house because of the heart problems. And during that period of treatment for 130 days, and even after that treatment for a couple of months, or like 6 months after treatment, the seizures kept happening. And for the longest time, I was scared I was going to die from a heart problem before the cancer killed me. Like that's how bad the heart problem was. And during that treatment period with the heart problem, the seizures, I started having left kidney problems. I went in for 3 different ureteral stent surgeries to have stents installed and removed. And I actually spent, it was like 9 or 10 months urinating blood on a daily basis.
Yeah, I have a picture to share you did send me a video version, but I felt I'd make it slightly less graphical. So for 10 months, you were peeing basically blood.
9 or 10 months, I was pissing blood just like that every day. Men aren't designed to do that every day, for one, or at all. No offense to the women. You girls, you women are amazing creatures. You guys are tough. You guys are designed to do that occasionally throughout your cycles. But us gentlemen, that's a no-go. Like we're not. Yeah, that was brutal. And I couldn't tell you how many times I complained to doctors, urologists about stuff. And I was even told, my mom was a witness, when I called the urologist's office to explain, hey, you know, I'm urinating blood, I'm having pain, you know, when I pee, it hurts. And of course, you know, it's going to hurt because it's coming out red. The first response I got, stop playing with yourself. Stop having aggressive intercourse. And to be blunt, to embarrass myself even more, At the time, I couldn't even get hard. Chemo
Yeah.
had fried my manhood so bad. I had no sex drive. I had no hormones. I didn't know it at the time. Further testing in the future found out, my testosterone levels had, dropped drastically, and honestly, flash forward like a year after quitting treatment, I found out the treatment I was on actually causes hypogonadism in males. And so at this point in time, knock on wood, one of these days I could fix it. But right now in time, my balls aren't producing anything. I actually have to have medical grade hormones a little bit to keep me feeling good mentally, just because of the chemo, which is sad because that study I found was from 2009 saying how it affects males. And I hopped on treatment in 2022. So that study was like 11 years old. And it wasn't even discussed when I brought up, hey, what are the side effects? What are the damages? And nothing was talked about.
Yeah, because I saw you did a video about side effects and the stuff that you discovered since. And
Yeah.
I'll be careful what words I use here, but you'd think this questionable what you went through.
And that's what really, I don't know how to phrase this. I'm just going to be blunt. It comes out how it comes out. If it's bad enough, you can blur it out and re-edit it. But I love doctors. We need them. We get in a car crash, something gets mangled. We need an emergency surgery. That's what they're there for. What I don't love about doctors or the medical establishment is when you allow your education of an avenue to give you an ego, because that one avenue you studied, all. You could play God with that avenue. And say I'm a doctor, you're the patient. I tell you what you need to do. You do that. Something goes wrong. You're the one dealing with repercussions, not me. You got to deal with all the physicalness and emotionalness of having things go sideways.
Yeah.
And from a cancer standpoint with an oncologist, I really don't understand how, if you're going to be in an oncologist team, how can you tell a patient what they need to take without doing your research? It took me maybe, when I actually got looking into it, maybe took me 15 minutes to find an article about, that type of treatment I was on and why it causes problems and how it doesn't even work with mutations I deal with. And that's another thing I was going to say is that sunitinib malate that I was on for 130 days, it turns out the reason the cancer got worse and spread and intensified during that treatment period, that's why I quit treatment, by the way, is because everything got worse during that 130 days of treatment. Turns out, after I did my research and looked into things, I deal with an SDHA deficiency in the mutation for the GIST I deal with. That line of therapy, that TKI therapy, is sunitinib malate, doesn't touch it. It doesn't work with it. So why would they put me on it? That's what I didn't understand. And nobody's still giving me a straight answer on why they put me on a therapy knowing that therapy wouldn't work. I wish I didn't have the sore throat from all that dust yesterday. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Don't worry.
It was dusty yesterday, man. Like layers everywhere. It was a fun day, but yeah. I should have waited a day or two to go play in the dirt. But yeah, treatment made everything worse, intensified. So to get to the point where I was getting at was from how I got from chemo to carnivore is where this story now takes place. Actually, let me go blow my nose real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. I'll pause.
So back to how I got from chemo to carnivore. The cancer got worse during the 130 days of treatment. I ended up quitting treatment January 31st, 2023. You seen the picture? I look like Santa Claus.
Yeah. This one it looks like your father.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And without the pictures of the dates on top, January 31st, 2023 to January 31st,
You
2025,
had never said it was the same person. You would have
you would
thought it
think
was
it,
an
it
old,
was reversed.
yeah, the next generation.
You'd think, the young guy, and that's his father, but I had to put the dates because nobody believed me. It's like, you photo edited that. I don't even know how to deal with the computers half the time, let alone how to photo edit. And that's what I was going to say real quick before I get on to the whole story from chemo to carnivore is, well, as I've learned now, fighting cancer and living with cancer has been a hell of a lot easier for me than learning the technology behind the scenes. Growing up in life, being a tree climber, riding bikes, dirt bikes, I didn't need the technology. I didn't know any of that stuff. So it's been a more stressful learning the technology than it has been fighting the cancer most of the time.
Well, as I said, I'll guide you on some of the technical stuff going forward for you, fellas. Not a problem at all.
But I will state, if I'm learning it, everybody else could learn it. Just practice, give yourself some credit, and just learn how to fail, because failure is where you learn.
100%.
But yeah, I ended up quitting treatment in January 31st, 2023. And from that point in time till now, I made a deal with myself that I do different diets out there 3 months at a time between scan intervals to see what the food groups would do to the tumors. I hopped on plant-based vegan initially because that was, the craze going around Netflix. They did the whole plant documentary, and
yeah,
I didn't even make it I didn't even make it all of 3 months on plant-based vegan. I think I made it 2 months, and initially I felt better. But anything is better than chemo, As soon as you get that crap out of your system, you're going to improve. So I thought I was doing good on plant-based initially. And after about a month or so, I lost all my improvements, It's like the feelings never continued to get better, just kind of stalled out. So we found out with the screening during that plant-based period, the growth rate of the tumors definitely slowed down drastically, but they were still growing. So, and in my mindset, I'm like, 90 days should be more than enough to stall out and stabilize tumors, or have, reduction or growth, depending on what the situation is. So being how I had growth still after 90 days of that diet, I was like, okay, let's change to another diet. So long story short, plant-based, of course, standard American most of my life. I did Mediterranean for a while. I did keto, and all those still fed to tumors. Plant-based and keto seemed to be the ones that fed the tumors the slowest, though. So the common factor between plant-based and keto, carbohydrates, the amount of them. Plant-based, apparently, as I've learned now, plant-based has more carbohydrates than keto does, because plants break down into carbs break down into sugar. But during my keto regimen, a friend of mine, had sent me a video again of, shout out, Jeff the Prosperous, and his Blessings on My Journey YouTube page. He's a stage 4 colon cancer warrior. Long story short, his prognosis was they gave him 90 days and he made it, I think, 30 months. So he made it 10x his time length that they gave him. Amazing individual. Like, he and his story is exactly why I went carnivore, because he was doing treatment in carnivore. I'm like, and he was having success. He was feeling good. He didn't look like a colon cancer patient, And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not certified in any of this. I'm just speaking of my own journey, my own experiences, and my friends and family's experience I've met along the way that's gone through their journeys. And as I've learned and understood, colon cancer is one of the more aggressive cancers to deal with. I mean, all different cancers have their own aggressiveness or non-aggressiveness. But the way Jeff acted, the way Jeff looked, the way Jeff moved with the prognosis he dealt with, you wouldn't even know he was sick. And so that's what started the fire with me wanting to go carnivore. So I went carnivore, September 1st, 2023 was my first day of carnivore. I told
Okay,
myself,
so you're coming up close to 2 years because I'm
almost
2 years
2 years.
on
Yeah.
I'm 2 years on carnivore this weekend. So
Congratulations,
I
man.
started in June
Congratulations.
23. Thank you.
Yeah, if you would have asked me 2 years ago if I was going to go carnivore, no. Why would I go carnivore? Red meat feeds cancer. Red meat causes cancer. That's what the promotional thing was going on. That's what everybody talked about. So what's funny is I went carnivore. I told myself I'll do it for 90 days. I'll be super strict. Then I'll get the F off the diet and go back to a different diet. And it was like, it's not sustainable. It's not going to work, but I'm going to give it a shot. For those first 90 days, all I had was beef, butter, bacon, and eggs and salt. Nothing else, no fish, no nothing, just literally beef, butter, bacon, and eggs and salt. My next scan, I showed no tumors growing. Like literally everything stalled out. Nothing was bigger or smaller. This is my first scan since this whole time, basically from my mid-20s when they first found that pea-sized tumor that came to golf ball size. This is the first time in 8 years or 9 years the tumor stopped growing. And I decided, well, hey, if I had this much luck in 90 days and to stall out the progress, let's give it another 90 days and see if we can shrink some stuff. Because I realized our bodies are really resilient and smart. So for the next 90 days, which is, the total of 180 days in the carnivore, I hopped on European mistletoe as well.
Okay, yeah.
It's through a naturopathic clinic. It's approved in Europe, but it's not approved in the United States. So insurance doesn't cover it. It's very expensive to cover out of pocket. It's like $550 a month I spend on European mistletoe. But I hopped on European mistletoe. I hopped on, of course, I was already on carnivore. When I quit treatment in January of 2023, back like 3 weeks later, I think it was February 27th, so maybe 3.5 weeks later, I ended up having a gym membership. So exercise, strength training has been in the same program since day one, since the first diet. When I went plant-based, vegan-based is when I started the gym, and I've been in the gym ever since. So that hasn't changed. I started doing cold therapies in the showers. I actually, for the last 6 months now, I've been doing cold therapy, like in plunging. I actually have my own tank I built that I go in daily and freeze. Sauna therapy. I started adding all these different avenues, red light therapy as well, for the natural approach, like the metabolic approach. I'm starting to learn what metabolic health is and what it means to have healthy mitochondria versus dysfunctional mitochondria.
Yeah.
As you guys know or should know, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cells. They're the worker bees, so to speak.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not certified. But my opinion is cancer is caused from dysfunctional mitochondria. Your cells get rogue, they get dysfunctional, they mutate, and either cancer comes out, diabetes comes out, something type of illness or autoimmune comes out. That's my firm belief. That's my opinion. But with all that being said, going from day one to 180 days into carnivore, implementing, all these metabolic approaches and doing all these different supplements, Rick Simpson oil is another one that I've been on for a couple of years now. And I actually showed shrinkage of one tumor. Tumor shrunk like 30% in size during that regiment period of me, just cramming everything in at once, hard. And then, of course, that got expensive. I couldn't keep that routine up. And so I've cut it back since then to what I can afford. But I've been stable ever since. For the last year, I've had no growth or no shrinkage at all in any tumors, like completely stable. Wow. And the cool part about that is I'm a firm believer that it's my lifestyle and food choices that's putting my body into a state it could control the cancer and either let it grow or not grow. Carnivore really reduces the inflammation in the body. Like I said, I've had 24 broken bones, 12 plus surgeries. One of my old slogans or sayings used to be, it's not about how many miles on the body, it's how hard of miles. Because I was young, I was beaten up, I put my body through hell. If I'm being honest, back in the high school times, I was a pill junkie. I was addicted to Vicodin because I was already in so much pain in high school times from the broken bones I've already been through. I'm an adrenaline junkie most of my life, If it has motors or wheels, I'm going to try to see if I catch air with it.
Love it.
But now I'm not in any pain. Like, I have no pain on a regular basis. This last August, I don't know if you know what a Spartan race is or like Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
Tough Mudder is an off branch of Spartan. The coaches at the local gym that I go to talked to me into, hey, give this a shot with us. You could do it. It's only 10 miles. It's only 30 obstacles only.
Yeah.
It took me and my buddy, who was my partner, 4 hours to do those 10 miles and 30 obstacles. We passed 29 out of the 30 obstacles. We failed one. But here, I'm dealing with stage 4 incurable cancer, and I'm doing things no other cancer patients done as a whole. I mean, there's people there that had different, disabilities. I get that. But when I was talking to different volunteers or different people running the show, and they heard about the cancer, like, that's insane that you're here. Why? I'm like, I want to prove that an illness or a diagnosis can't define who you are and what you're capable of. And I'm actually wanting to sign up in September for another one of those Spartan races to, still keep proving to people you could do anything if you put your mind to it.
Yep. Well, you obviously don't know me, but my name's Day, and to raise some money for a charity to do with a family connection, I did the London Marathon in a medieval suit of armor.
Awesome.
So that's me. 9 hours and 46 minutes of hell later, as you can see, bit tight.
Man, that's a long time to wear that suit of armor.
It was yeah. But I weren't taking it off until I finished. That's the mindset. That mindset. You've got to beat it.
Yeah, mindset's everything. As an example of that, I'll do a quick couple challenges I've put myself through physically. Last year at 9/11, I wanted to do something memorable for the firefighters and all the fallen heroes from 9/11. Yeah. So what better way than to climb the Twin Towers, so to speak, in fire gear? And I understand the towers aren't there anymore, but we have stair climbers at the gym, and they have different speeds to control settings. So I ended up talking to the local fire department, borrowing the gear I was able to borrow. They legally wouldn't let me use a tank and mask because of liability reasons.
Yeah,
but instead they gave me a weighted vest to equal the same amount of weight as a tank and mask would equal. Yeah. So I was boots, fire pants, fire jacket, helmet. There's like a 60-pound weighted vest. I did 114 flights of stairs or 113 flights of stairs dressed in fire gear at the local gym for the fallen heroes last year. And thank you. I want to do it again this year. I'd like to get a few people, throughout the world or towns, live, get everybody doing it at once. It took me an hour to do it. And, those jackets are really thick, they have to be so they could, resist the heat. I had sweated so bad. Like, it was just pouring constant water out of the elbow sleeves, But it's mindset. Like, I wanted to give up after 5 minutes, and I made it the full 60. And just one step after the next. It's like other people have suffered for a lot less things. Let me, be that inspiration for somebody else.
Well, I'll tell you what. You let me know if you do that, and count me in. I'll do something similar with you live together. Awesome. Because I think that's awesome. I think that's an amazing thing to do.
It's important to remember the people that are no longer with us. Whether it's a fallen hero or a fallen cancer patient or just anybody in general, it's like in my own predicament, in my own case, and your channel just now, I've given 2 shout out to Jeff the Prosperous and his family. I wouldn't be where I'm at without him being vulnerable, and so for me to continue on and pave the pathway he started, we can't forget about him. And that goes to show with anything, whether it's the 9/11 heroes or the everyday law enforcement or people like you and I talking about this type of stuff. Just show a little bit of gratitude and appreciation to the people that impact your life.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So that's honestly, your story just mind blows me. It really does. It's an incredible story. So what's your regime now? What's a normal day for you, apart from being a lumberjack and jumping up trees and shit?
So my typical day, I do intermittent fasting every day. I eat in that 8-hour window and I fast for 16 hours a day. First thing in the morning, I get up, I do a quick shower, get my skin clean, then I hop in a cold plunge for 3 to 5 minutes every day. Some days it's 44 degrees. Some days it's 44 degrees with 24 pounds of ice. Some days I drop it down to 36 degrees because I have a chiller and I can hit a button and get it hotter or colder. I'm just always trying to, get stronger in my mentalness. So, like example, a couple of weeks ago, last week, I had an issue with the chiller, and so instead of like being upset, like, oh no, I can't use my plunge today, I just unplugged everything and went to the store and got a bunch of ice and used the ice I had. I had like 50 pounds of ice total and just hopped in a tank with 50 pounds of ice. It was brutal, but it was fun.
There's always the solution.
Yeah, there's always a solution. You just got to think outside the box. Yeah. So yeah, cold therapy every morning. I typically don't eat till my first meal around 10 or 11 in the morning. It really depends on when I ate the last meal because I try to intermittent fast. Autophagy is very important for anybody. Autophagy is self-eating of the body. It cleanses itself. It doesn't matter if you're a normal individual, somebody with an illness. Fasting is so beneficial. Plus, it saves money on food. And then for the first year, I'd go to the gym 6 days a week. But as I've learned, the stronger you get, the more recovery time you need. So instead of going 6 days a week now, I am about 4 days a week. I've taken basically 2 more days off for recovery days so I could continue to get stronger. 3 days a week, I go to the pool and do sauna therapy as well, and go sit in either a wet sauna or a dry sauna. The wet saunas are by far harder for me to do, but it's really beneficial to do both. Some days, I just sit here at home and research and try to make different content to get the story out there and in fact to help other people more. Mm-hmm. But I'm not working right now. I'm on disability. And I would like to get back to work at some point in time. It's just I have to either become cancer free or stop going to the doctors. Right. Because I can't. To be blunt and honest with my story is when I was doing Western medicine, things were covered. It was fine, but I progressively got worse and was dying under Western medicine treatment. So once I quit Western medicine and went all natural, now everything's out of my own pocket. Nothing's covered through insurance, which is sad. They paid to screw me up, but they won't pay to fix me. And so I can't afford to go to work, pay for the treatment that I'm on naturally, plus fight and stay in the shape I am, not get progressively worse. So I'm literally just applying myself to become a better version of me, mm-hmm. to help spread my knowledge to other people. I'd like to get certified eventually in something in the carnivore community. I'm sure there's classes out there so I could help transition people from, standard American to keto or carnivore. That's the end goal. But my routine, like I said, I try to move my body as much as I can. I aim for 10,000 steps a day. If I don't get it, it's not game over. Just try hard again the next day. But yeah, I aim to move my body, 8 to 10,000 steps a day, 10,000 if I can, 8,000 at the bare minimum. I said the cold therapy every morning, hot therapy. And that's another one I forgot to mention. Cold therapy and hot therapy is really important to do, but depending on your goals for your physicalness, depends on what order you do them in.
Right.
For example, then this is from the research I've done, is if you're after recovery and feeling better so you can perform again the next day, after your strength training session, you would do cold therapy to reduce inflammation so you can recover quicker and hit it again the next day. But if you're after the muscle growth effect, hypertrophy, you would do the heat after your training session so you could intensify the inflammation to make them stimulate muscle growth more. And even on my YouTube page, under my playlist, is on somebody else's channel, they had a episode of cold therapy and hormones. And doing cold therapy prior to training actually helps with hormones better. I didn't know that, so I literally, that's why I do cold therapy in the morning. Start it off, and I do my training in the afternoon to help, with the hormones, help with the mitochondria. I don't know if you can see, red lights up on the top of the screen.
Yeah, I see that.
I hung red lights throughout my trailer too, because what I've understood through this journey is it's the mitochondria that really helps with your health. And so to stimulate healthy mitochondria, whenever the sun's gone, I turn the regular LED lights off, the white ones, and turn the red ones on. So sunrise or sunset to sunrise, red lights are on. During the daytime, I could use the regular lights. I'm literally just trying to get more and more to natural, more and more to nature. Spend some time outside barefoot every day, touch the grass with your bare feet, grounding.
We call it grounding,
Yeah, grounding.
Matt, one question for you is matter of interest. You mentioned when you're having the chemo, you couldn't be out in the sun for more than 5-10 minutes. The cancer I had was skin cancer, and I had a melanoma here where I ended up having 15 stitches to remove it, and they found it trying to get into the skull itself. So I got very lucky. But I've noticed since I've been on carnivore, I can sit out in the sun, where before, as you can see by my golden tan knot, I've got Irish descent, and I'm like an Irishman. I get radioactive over 22 degrees. So do you find now that you're on carnivore that your skin reacts differently to sun? That's probably the point I'm trying to make, or question I'm trying to ask.
Oh, most definitely. Like before chemo, before the whole cancer journey, I'd get sunburned pretty easily out in the sun. I got some Swedish in me. And then during chemo, of course, I couldn't be out in the sun hardly at all because I really got burnt. But for example, I was out in the sun yesterday for 7 hours. I'm not red at all.
Yeah.
It feels like my body deals with and radiates the sun a lot better, carnivore. And again, this is through my studies, my opinions. This is my opinion on what I've understood in research is it's kind of like the water effect. You go to the lake and that sun's bouncing off the lake back to you. You're going to get burnt quicker. Well, when you're eating the standard American diet that's laced with all these industrial oils, all those oils are in your skin. So you're getting that radiation effect from, or whatever the effect is, from the sun into your skin and back, and it's going to intensify the burn quicker. And even for my eyes, for a matter of fact, I very seldom ever wear sunglasses anymore since I've been carnivore. Very seldom. It's like when I put them on, my eyes actually hurt. And with sunglasses, is like it wants to be stimulated by the sun. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and stare at the sun, of course, but I've noticed so many changes with carnivore, whether it's physical digestive issues gone. Like I'm actually 6 months on eating raw steak every day, beef tartare.
Are you into raw as well? Same as me then.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I don't. I actually, unless somebody else is a really good cook with the steak, I will prefer to eat it raw now, just because of how it makes me feel. Like the digestive, you don't even know what's inside of you.
Hallelujah. Because I don't know if you've visited my channel at all, but I actually interviewed a guy. I called him the raw carnivore, and he 99% of the time just eats raw meat, raw eggs, everything, pork, bacon, the lot, chicken. He eats totally raw. I wouldn't go to that. So I experimented and I tried to go raw with beef. And I now probably eat 3 times a week at least raw. And then I've had other people who've gone more raw than me. And honest you say, that flavor is just unbelievable. I can't explain to people how good it is when it, because you don't chew it, it dissolves. It
Yeah,
dissolves as you eat it.
it's kind of like, I'm going to use an example with AC/DC, the music people. Everybody
Yeah.
knows AC/DC, or everybody
Yeah.
should know AC/DC. It's like going to watch a concert with them in person versus on the TV. It's two different experiences.
Yeah.
So you and I could talk to everybody blue in the face, and they're not going to understand on the benefits, the taste, the amazingness until you just try it. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the podcast. It's mentalness. You
Yeah.
know, if you psych yourself up, oh, that's gross, you're not going to want to do it. Just take a bite. And literally, I just dissect a steak, a little bit of salt, raw egg, mix it up. Some days I use some caper, some days I don't. And I put down a pound almost every day of raw steak, and it's delicious.
I'm with you on that one, brother. No problem at all. Right, so it is coming up to about an hour, so we'll wrap up now. I think there's going to be a second one of these coming up because you're great to have on here. So I'd just like to say thank you very much. Your YouTube channel is your name, if I'm correct.
Yes, for now it's my name. Eventually, I'd like to
And
link stuff together, but
I will put a link in my description to your YouTube, and I recommend anyone watching this go to his YouTube, subscribe, because he says it as it is. There is no, as I said when we were talking before we started recording, there's no fluff with Anthony. He tells you as it is. It's raw and it's true, and I find it very inspiring. I think your story is amazing. So thank you very much, Anthony. You're an absolute champion.
I appreciate the invite on, and I can't wait for the next one. And if you guys that are listening want to continue to hear more stories of me, and I'll see if Carl could link my GoFundMe into the description, because the donations help me keep going, since it's a struggle now being off treatment through the Western medicine approach.
100%, fella. You send me that link. I'll get that included in this description, and we'll see if we can keep you going in the right direction. Thanks again, Anthony.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for the invite.